Ulahavin Inyan Zeh, the Sus Asher Rachav Alav HaMelech, and to understand this concept of the horse that the king has rode upon, Sheishnu B'Prat B'Chol Yom K'Divrei Zal, that there is this idea every day, like the saying of our sages, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Rochei V'Chulu. The Holy One, blessed be He, rides on the Kruv Kal and the Av Kal. On the light angel or the light cloud, V'gam B'Chlal, L'chol Shisal Feishni Dahavi Alma. And so to in general, to all the 6,000 years that is the existence of the world, now that we see every generation and at all times, there's a concept of revelation of godliness below in this lowly world of ours, Gamkein. There's different types of ways of godly revelation. Now in the days of the Tanoim, you had a revelation of godliness in the oral Torah, the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the Mishnah and the Gemara. That you didn't have such a revelation of godliness in this type of study in the oral Torah in the generations that were before them. Certainly also in the earlier generations. For example, in the times of the first temple, you had a revelation of godliness in the oral Torah, but the revelation at that time was not as much like it was in the times of the Tanaim. But in some things, the godly revelation in the time of the first temple was greater than in the time of the second temple, like the prophecy to prophets and the like. Therefore, we see a number of different ways of godly revelation. Till one generation is not comparable to its friend at all. That in one generation you'll have godly revelation in one thing, and another generation in another thing. And like we see different types of godly revelation also after the times of the Tanaim and the Amoraim, after the Mishnah and the Gemara, and this is that in the days of the Geonim, we had a godly revelation in a different type and way, that was different in their time than in the first poskim that came after them, like the Rif and the Rambam and the Balei Tosfos that came after the Geonim. Similarly, it continues to change in every generation. Until the later generations that are closer to our time. We had many different changes from generation to generation. Until in our generations, the main concept of revelation of godliness is in the midst of acts of kindness. So too, you have any particular time. You have a particular time that the godly revelation is within prayer, and you have a time when the revelation is within Torah. And you have a particular time for particular mitzvahs. It's all you have that you have a revelation after revelation, only that this particular hour, this particular time needs a particular type of revelation in this particular thing. But the intention in all of them is the same. Only that the vessel to enclose it comes in a change is a changed vessel. וזהו עניין רכיבת הסוס בפרט בכל יום ובכל עת ובכל שעה, and this is the concept of riding upon the horse in particular each day and all times and every hour. וגם בכלל לכמה דורות יחד, and so too in general to a number of generations together, איך שיהיה אופן הגילוי מן ההלם, how the revelation will come from the hidden state, באיזה כלי שהוא רכיבת הסוס, in what type of vessel will be the riding of the horse. על דרך משל, for example. וזהו גם כן עניין שת בחי אלף עולמות, and this is also the concept of him riding, flying through 18,000 worlds, in particular b'chol yom, every day shushat u'miskal Hashem that he rides and is revealed there, so to speak. Yesh lomar, we could say in parentheses, Kisuk Astar Vidanofeles, that the falling sukkah of David, Shiredes, that descends mi madrega le madrega, from level to level, that the sukkah falls al kain lefi erech hanafila kol kach, so in accordance with how low it falls, the horse has to ride to there in order to reveal itself in the world. In the sukkah meaning the place where the Shekhinah will dwell and rest. Ein bidrush bahagia torester shlifi erech hanafila kach, the sarach lios ha'ezer hu, that incomparable to the depth of, to the length of how much it falls down, that's how much help you need. Like it says that in Medrash Rabbah that she went into one place and Hashem was with her, and another place and Hashem was with her, and then finally Hashem, so to speak, goes away, and that's when Esther says Kili Kili Lamazav Tani and so forth in Medrash. We can say that what's the concept of the sleep of the horse that's left less than half an hour? That's Shishin Nishmin, 60 breaths. This hints to it hints to the concept of the watchful eye, because that's not truly sleeping, that doesn't sleep. Like it says that the guardian of Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Now, in the time of Achashverosh, which was in the time of the first temple, it was the exile from the first temple. After the destruction and the exile of the first temple, then you had the enclothement of the Shekhinah bebichinas klipas noga bebichinas tov shebenoga. So the Shekhinah rested in the good part of the noga. It fell down into noga, into the klipas, but in the good part. Shnikra vashti, that's called vashti, the good in the noga. Al derech admosai atem puschim al shtei haseipim, like Eliyahu Hanavi said in Har HaCarmel to the Jewish people, until when will you be balancing on your two different thoughts? So shtei is the two, meaning to say that there's the good and the bad there. So that's the concept of the noga. Shu klipas noga, sheish bato v'ra, that has good and the bad. That's why that's why it's called, so to speak, limping. Poschim, that why are you limping upon these two thoughts? That poschim is from the language of limping. Moshe Enkin Knesset Yisrael mash v'raglai kayalos, that the souls of Israel, the pasuk says, you have placed my feet like standing, meaning like rams, meaning even on the mountain they're stable. Emunah mitis chulu, true belief, not like on Har HaCarmel where they had doubts and you had to fight the Baal. And the source of the concept of its nurturance of the other side is from the concept that Yaakov divided his camp into two sides, to two camps, and Esav was coming to greet them. And it's possible that Esav would come into one of the machanos v'hiko, and that division hints to this concept of, I guess, of tov v'ra and the klippus noga. The concept of two. V'chein Achashverosh hafachfach hulu. So to our sages said about Achashverosh that he flipped his opinion. He flipped his what he was doing back and forth. That he also had two ways of doing things. Shal zeh holech v'omer kol sipur ma'aseh de Vashti. That upon this is the whole story of Vashti, im Achashverosh, with Achashverosh, asher nigzar alei asher lo savo Vashti lifnei hamelech, that it's decreed upon her. The Vashti should not come in front of the king. The hainu shelo yagilu yilkus b'bchinas tov shvenogo kiyotze b'zeh. That spiritually this would mean that you will not have a revelation of godliness into the good part of the noga and the like. Similarly, you have the giving of the ring to Haman, which is, I guess, a unika of Klippa. Like it says that he took off his ring. It's also a concept of the king's ring, the concept of enclothement of godliness, into vessels, and of many types of vessels, in hiding. The concept of the ring is the concept of the seal of the king. What's the seal of the king? Allegorically, like the seal of a king of flesh and blood, that he will seal with his ring, and in his ring is engraved his name. And it says on the bottom of the Shulei that this word bitabato chakuk, that first tabato is added al pi nidfas b'torah or kaf gimel. She'af al pi, back inside, that even though she'in b'chasimu zurak osios shmo b'lvad, that there's only the letters of his name alone in here. So you draw into this seal from his essence and being of the king. And that's why the seal is so important. And the concept is that the will of his soul is fulfilled. And the will of his soul is revealed and engraved within this seal, to the point where it cannot be changed by his will being changed, because his will has already been revealed. And the will comes from an inner part of the soul, as is known. And the allegory is understood, the one understands above, with the seal of the Holy One, blessed be He, that's called the ring of the king. Or we could say that the seal of the Holy One, blessed be He, is truth. That I am the first and I am the last. Or now the concept of first and last you can only say in the spreading out of the light, that there's first and last. Which is not the case with his essence, which is beyond the concept of time, division. You can't say what's the first and what's afterwards or last. Because I, Malchus of Ein Sof, am the first. That becomes the first level of Atzilus, the crown of Atzilus. And I am the last one. The last level of Atzilus is Malchus. Therefore, it's only called a seal and a ring, not his essence. Being just like the seal or the ring is incomparable to the king himself. So too, Keser and Malchus, even though they surround the whole Atzilus, they're a Maki, a surrounding like a ring, they're incomparable to the Atzmus Umahus. Ein minyan tabas me'oreor tes sif ches tabasi Malchus. Look what it says in me'oreor, that tabas, the ring, is Malchus v'chol sfiros nikra tabas chul, and all the sfiros are called a ring. I guess because they're makifim. They have makifim. Gam kin al derech zeh, similarly, Vainu mashikos b'tzis this is what it says on the tzitz, Bitachta alav pituchei chosam, that you're going to open upon it, engrave upon it, an engraving of a seal. And like it says above, and the concept is the bitabazu nechtam gilui ratzon elyon, that in this ring is sealed the revelation of his supernal will. Afal pisha inu ela bechinas osios bilvad, even though it's only letters alone. Mitam mashal hanal, and from the allegory that we brought with it about the ring. And this is what it says in the Megillah, that which is written in the name of the king and sealed with the ring of the king, you cannot go back upon. Like the pasuk says in Balak and Bilam, that will he do something? Will he say something and not do it? And my words will not return empty. So that when you have the words of Hashem, certainly that's the case. And sometimes the seal of the ring was given to Haman and then to Mordechai. So it makes sense. Bein al tabas malchus dein sof, whether it's the ring of malchus of the infinite, hamir bisod abachulu, that shines into Yesod of Abba, that the Malchus shines into Yesod Abba, the Yesod of the parts of Chachma, which would be Mordechai. Upam lahaman al derech yislapshus Malchus tasiyah beklipus chulu, and the ring is given also to Haman, which is like the enclosed with the Malchus of Asiyah, the lowest level, into the Klippos. Because there's different Malchus, because there's different levels of revelation. When it goes all the way down into the Klippos, it's like the Malchus going into the Klippos, whereas in going into Mordechai is like Keser, Malchus of Ein Sof, which is the ring into Yesod Abba, the giver of wisdom. So too, the source of the nurturance that goes into the Klippos comes also from the Mekif, the level that light is like darkness, that he is marich af l'rashaim, that he lengthens his anger, is from the wicked as well. Even though these two enclothements of Mordechai and Haman are far from each other completely, opposite ends, because in front of the essence of the king all are equal, like darkness, like light, and that's enough to understand about this ring. Amar Haman, and this is what Haman said, that the horse that the king rides upon, and that there's a crown of kingship placed upon him. And Haman thought it was going to be him, and it could have been equally him or Mordechai. And that is upon these things that are upon the king when he rides upon the horse. We're drawing down from the concept of he's not a man, and that's the crown of the kingship upon his head. What does it mean upon his head? That's the concept of haughty upon haughty, like was explained before. That's the concept of riding on the horse. And the crown upon his head is the haughtiness that the king has with this concept of the horse. That the horse represents this idea of haughty upon haughty, that it should only go to the right place. So the horse itself refers to the enclothement, and the crown on the head implies the haughtiness of it as well, just like the horse does. Look what it says about the idea of the horses and the chariots of Paro, the female horses before the male horses. It's also a concept of from below to above and above to below, and Isrus Lasat, Isrus La'elo, having Yira before Ava and so forth. And you have the horses of Paro. The chariots of Paro is a similar concept here to the ring being given to Haman, or the horse that Haman wanted to ride. Pirish Keser Malchus. So the concept of the crown of the king, Hainu Bechinas Haratzon Shu Keser Lemidas Hamalchus Lamaila, which is the concept of the will, which is the crown, to the attribute of Malchus above. The Ratzon is the Keser to the Malchus above. That even though it says that your kingship is the kingship of all worlds, still need to arouse the concept of the will to the attribute of Malchus Mishum de Be'emes, because in truth, so even though it's there, you need to arouse a will for it. You have to have the Keser drawn into the Malchus, because in truth, in Melech Blo Am, you do not have a king without a nation. So there has to be a nation acting like a nation in order to awaken this idea. And there's nothing separate, since he himself created something from nothing. How could he be king upon them? He created them, and they're not in front of him. But you have to draw this out and draw this down, this pleasure and will to in order to desire to spread out and be a king like this. Like it's explained in another place. And this is similar to the concept of the seal of the ring that has within it the revelation of will, of his will. And this is the meaning of the pasuk. And there was given a crown of kingship upon his head. That's given and drawn in the letters of this horse, which this horse corresponds with letters. The inner concept of the will, in order to draw out the will and pleasure to be king. That's called the crown of the kingship. Like Eliyahu says, that the crown of the king from it is drawn down, to draw out from beginning to the end. And so it says Aliyah is Mashich, and on the Shulei Gilayim it says in Torah it says Itmar, and the quotes the usual Yirsa of Pasach Eliyahu Aliyah Itmar Magid Mireshi Sachris. That then upon this it says of Keser Malchus, you have the Keser and you have the Malchus, so you draw out from the beginning and the end. The beginning, the end. Now after the crown of kingship is given upon the horse, Hamelech, and the horse that the king has ridden upon, it lifts him up to the concept of exaltedness and haughtiness that was explained before. To the point where he is haughty, lifts himself up from the haughty to rest only upon Israel Bilvad alone. And that's the concept of giving the ring to Mordechai, the Jew, and that giving the horse is only the haughtiness. But the giving of the ring means to say that it should go only to Mordechai. That I love Yaakov and to hate Esav, which is a revelation of will to the souls of Israel, specifically and to hate those who go against his will. And the reason because that this is through the ring specifically, because the round ring hints to this concept of encompassing and surrounding, and the souls of Israel in a concept of encompassing and surrounding in this concept of encompassing, they are attached to the essence of godliness. That is beyond reasoning and understanding, because we see clearly B'Yisrael and Israel, even the lowly, in comparison, even if they do have pleasure from riches and honor, very much so, it's not their true inner will. And their true inner will is not filled from this, which is not the case with the nations of the world. that that's their main will. And the Yisrael does not feel this. Why this is so is not from any reason or understanding. But this kind of thing is not something they understand, but it's beyond reasoning and intellect. It's because of the source of their soul above. That even though they do not see, their soul sees. This is what it says, that the souls of Israel say, place me as a seal, as a chosam upon your heart, like we said, that the seal is the revelation of the inner will. That what does it say in Zohar about the seal? That even if you go here and you go there, my seal is still with you, my image remains with you. Perish diokni, what does it mean, my image? Meaning to say, if you have like a picture of the king. Diokni, hainu osios chosam, that is to say, the letters of the seal. Shabo nishar shimon bichnes pnimis vikar ratzon kanal, and that remains in it remains the residue from the inner and main concept of his will, like was explained. Kitzer, so in short, they were in self-sacrifice beyond intellect. And the proof for this is from the frogs. I guess because they would jump in the oven. That Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah learned a kal v'chomer from the frogs to jump into the fire. Ryan B'Yalkut, look what it says in Yalkut about this, that this is the inner will of the king. That it refers to Mesiras Nefesh of Kesed.